For me, the biggest thing I'm bracing for is having to watch so many businesses go out of business because, as you said, nobody wants to see a business go out of business, especially when you know it could have been avoided.
Yeah.
Do you think that now there's still time for this to be avoided, or are we at crunch time?
I suppose for some there is time, depending on, where they've come from, what their financial backing is, that kind,
Right.
because money is time.
Yep.
And time is money. So, if they don't have the money to buy the time, then no, there's not. But I think it's going to be probably a slow burn, if you want to call it that. But I think it's going to start soon because people are not going to know what to do with the pricing.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop, It's Time to Become a Coffee Consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 4 of a fantastic 5-part series with Carol Salloum from 3 Tomatoes and Almond Bar in Sydney, Australia. In this series, we're talking about 2025 from the perspective of a cafe owner in Sydney or in Australia. And I will add to that, it's a very successful cafe owner in Sydney, Australia. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what do we expect will unfold for businesses and customers over the next 12 months. So Carol, in the end of the last episode, we were talking about this kind of filtering out process. I've been calling it, there's going to be like a culling that happens in the industry. Talk to me about what you see from that perspective. Do you agree that that's going to happen? Do you think that it needs to happen? You operate in a very saturated market in general, even though in your neighbourhood there's not a lot of cafes. Talk to me about that for the Sydney scene.
Yeah. Well, Sydney is saturated with cafes. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you turn, there's a cafe. Mm-hmm. And after COVID, there was a rise in neighbourhood cafes. Mm-hmm. So neighbourhood cafes are doing better than inner city cafes. And so I think, even though our neighbourhood hasn't got heaps of cafes, there are cafes around.
Okay.
And again, I've seen the difference between the way ours is run and the success of ours and then the not so successful other ones. Mm-hmm. And it's simple. It really is simple. It really is just the way it's run, because there's one cafe in particular that when we first opened, they were very successful. They sold on. Mm-hmm. Then it just went down.
Really?
Yeah. And so It hasn't been great for the last, say, 5 years. And so I think that cafe will either close or a new buyer will come in, something, this is what we mean by, and what I mentioned earlier was like the cream rising to the top. That's what's going to happen. And I think it's a good thing because people have too much choice, I think, at the moment. And with social media, the places, often ours is not the Instagrammable cafe. And I think the ones that are always on Instagram, they're the ones that are not going to do as well because people can be fickle. The market can be very, very fickle when it comes to Instagram. So I'm excited about that part of it. I think it's important that happens.
So if I understand you correctly, the market correction with this cream rising to the top is, Warren Buffett, people are sick of hearing me saying this on the podcast, but Warren Buffett says when the tide goes out, that's when you see who's swimming naked.
Yes. Yeah.
That's about what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
We're going to start to see, as these like stressful forces in the market happen and in the supply chain happen, we're going to start to see the businesses who have been operating responsibly, the businesses who have been taking care of their staff, the people who have built relationships with their customers, those who have treated their suppliers correctly, the people who are running values-driven businesses, and perhaps they may not be as flashy on Instagram, but the reason they're not as flashy on Instagram is because they realize they don't have the budget to throw that money at a media company to do it. In your mind, this is going to be their moment during this process or after 2025. What do you think?
I think during, I think give it another few more months you'll see it. I have a feeling that's, yeah. I'm already starting to see it.
How?
Where people are, well, just people going, like we said before, so many types of people are going in thinking that I've got to spare $100,000. I want to open a cafe, or I've got to spare, whatever they think it's going to cost them. And then they go in and realize, hold on a second, it's not as easy as I thought. Then they're scrambling. And when you scramble, everything starts to crumble, right?
Well, you start reacting rather than being proactive to everything.
Exactly. There's no plan. There's no organization. There's no direction. And so one of the biggest things that happens is you lose your labor, your staff, because your staff have confidence in you. So they start moving on. And when they start moving on, the customers don't feel loyal if they have a connection to that staff member or staff members. Again, you could have the best coffee or the best food, but if your service isn't great, then they don't feel a loyalty towards you. So I think I'm seeing it. You see places open, close, open, close, open, all over Sydney, all the time. And it's sad. Like, it really upsets me because no one wants to see a business go under.
No one.
It's just, it would be nice if someone said to them, hey, maybe you need to do a course, or maybe you need to consult with someone before you try this. So not sure what to expect after that.
It's going to be tough to watch. I remember when we were young women getting into this game, and we were filled with energy, and we were really naive, and we were really excited, and we felt kind of invincible. And now that we've learnt a little bit and we can see what's coming in 2025, for me, the biggest thing I'm bracing for is having to watch so many businesses go out of business, because, as you said, nobody wants to see a business go out of business, especially when it could have been avoided.
Yeah.
Do you think that now there's still time for this to be avoided, or are we at crunch time?
I suppose for some there is time, depending on, where they've come from, what their financial backing is, that kind,
right.
Because money is time.
Yep.
And time is money. So, if they don't have the money to buy the time, then no, there's not. But I think it's going to be probably a slow burn, if you want to call it that. But I think it's going to start soon, because people are not going to know what to do with the pricing.
A part of that, like, all of it has flow-on effects. So completely. The business goes, and I'd love to spend some time talking about the flow-on effects here, right? Because as this unfolds and we see businesses go out of business, we're going to see a flooding of labour into the market.
Yep.
What impact do you think that has?
The labour into the market, the unemployment rate, obviously.
And for business, what's the feedback loop? Let's say that there's a lot of labour in the market, which is usually typically not the case. In Sydney, it's usually you're always scrambling to find a barista.
Yeah.
And that has really put a lot of power in the barista's hand.
Yes. Yeah.
That dynamic's about to flip.
Yeah. Yeah. And the the positive is that you can negotiate a better pay rate for you as the business, and probably be a bit smarter in your planning for labor. And again, we sift through because, we have a lot of labor around, but good labor is very different.
This has been a thing we've talked about for almost 2 decades. I can find a barista anywhere, but can I find one that will turn up to work, actually make coffee, and not be an asshole to the customers?
Yeah. So, I mean, you do. When I interview mostly based on personality and not skills.
How's that working with Gen Z? She has a Gen Z in the house, so that's why she.
They're not talkers, that's for sure.
That's so good. I mean, one of the prerequisites, just so we can also help you understand, folks, like if you've never been to a cafe in Sydney, the profession of a barista is seen in Sydney and Melbourne as very, very different to where it's seen everywhere else in the world. It's a legitimate profession. We're deeply loved when we do what we do well. We're deeply loved by the community. And we are highly sought after when we're skilled baristas. Right, Carol?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So you need to be a talker.
Yeah, and not just a talker who talks to the staff.
Yeah. Right. While they're eating all the profits.
Yeah, and making themselves the coffee. No, look, again, we've been lucky in that our staff are all beautiful people, and that's what I try to do. And then if it doesn't work out, we train them. We do a lot of training. And to the point where, I have a system in place that is like so rigid that it's like a foolproof one. So there's no problem. I've got 15-year-olds who can work very quickly. They just can't have a chat. They just don't know how to converse with the customer, and that's fine. You give them a certain job. But, like we were saying, the flow-on effect, the labour market being saturated. Also, the suppliers, if businesses close down, the suppliers are going to suffer because there's unpaid invoices and then there's vacant lots. So landlords are not being paid and so on and so on. So there is going to be a very interesting time coming.
When we look at like the suppliers, let's say the cafes around you will go out of business. Do you anticipate, like the suppliers panic because they've got stock sitting in a warehouse that they had projected for sales for the next year that's not going to be going into people's businesses? If we look at those businesses going out of business, we anticipate one of two things happening. Either they're going to come and find you guys again and you'll be their new home, or they'll split their coffee home between their actual home and you guys.
Yeah.
Do suppliers then start piling in and becoming like, do competitors to your suppliers start finding you?
Yes, that already happens.
Oh, wow.
The second that they see you're successful. So we get a lot of coffee roasters coming and trying to take over that side. We get a lot of suppliers coming to try and put their product in our business because they see how successful we are. And like I said to you before, we are so loyal to our suppliers that they'd have to do something drastic for us to drop them most of the time. And so, it happens. We do get that. And I think that's what's going to happen more for people like us, other successful cafes.
And this is where the water gets really murky. If what we predict is going to happen in 2025 happens, if this culling starts to happen, you'll start to see a lot of these businesses get more predatory. You'll start to see them get more competitive. It starts to become a dirty kind of, you don't want to be around that because you want to be focused on running a business, right?
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. And I'm, even now, before any of this has happened, when someone walks in and tries to compete with one of our other suppliers, I already get my back up instantly, because for me, it's not something I want to deal with. I've got enough to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I don't want to have to talk to you when you walk in about the product, and you're walking in when I'm busy talking to a customer who's, a shareholder in my business. You are a possible shareholder.
Well, you're a parasite usually. I'm such an asshole when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I can be, but obviously I've got my customers sitting there, so I can't. I've got to be nice.
Yeah. And then you and I will typically talking like this. Anyway, forget it.
Yeah.
Well,
we will.
And so the customer's going to be around witnessing a lot of stuff.
Yes.
They're going to be hearing, as they are in the news, that the price of coffee is going to go up. And as we look again, like what we're expecting to unfold over the next 12 months, when the customer turns around and starts saying, well, the news is telling me that coffee is going to go to 12. I'm currently paying $4.50 or $5.50 for my coffee. How do you think they go on that journey as they start to see the cafes around in their area going out of business? Perhaps they go to the city and they go to work and they see that cafes are struggling there. What ends up happening with the customers? How do they evolve over this next 12 months?
Okay, I'll tell you what happened. One of the customers, so we went on a 2-week break over the new year.
Yep.
And when we came back was the day after the news report had come out about the price of coffee, going to this $12. Anyway, one of our regular customers who are very regular, now so regular, their son now plays with my son.
Of course. It's always the way in our industry.
Yeah. Apparently the husband said to the wife, we can't go back there anymore because they're undercharging us for our coffee. Right? So, and I that was really sweet that they said that, because they get it. And so I said to them, I wish everybody was like you. I hope that more people will understand it like you do. So,
so the media is helping you.
Oh yeah. And I think the more that happens, the more that it's going to be easier to transition into a higher price.
So what about this other side of the media that's talking about the alternative to cafes being service stations and 7-Elevens?
I saw that.
Yeah.
Look, I really don't think people will, maybe the tradies in the morning, yeah, they'd love that because they're getting their $1 coffee. But look, people, when we close for those 2 weeks, the amount of people that come and say to us, we've had shit coffee over the last 2 weeks because of you. Like, okay, so it's nice that they like our coffee that much that they'll always come back. But they're not going to get a good coffee at the service station. Like anyone that drinks coffee from a service station, that belongs there. So we don't.
It's not the same business. It's not the same business.
Exactly.
Not the same customers. No. Well, folks, like again, remember these hikes in prices in coffee hit commercial coffee the most. So what that means is all of this commercial coffee that's in the 7-Elevens and that's in the service stations, the price will stay what it is until the contracts end that coffee's tied to. Once those contracts end, those prices are going to go up as well.
Yep.
They may not go to $6, but they're still going to go up. And then those customers will feel that level of betrayal because these people said that they were going to keep their prices, blah, 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 blah. It goes back to this thing we have been saying for the 8 years that this podcast has been on, which is be a values-based business. Don't take shortcuts. Don't steal from your future. And you won't have to worry about what happens when the tide goes out, because whether you're swimming naked or not, you don't give a fuck. You're doing what you are living by your own values.
Yeah.
And this for me is what 2025 is going to be about. It's going to be like this audit and report card about how true were you to building something that you really wanted to build, and what relationship do you have with your entire supply chain in the process of building that. If you fucked somebody over, that is coming back, that karma's coming back this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the final episode is going to be where we're talking about how you're positioning the business strategically to stay focused over the next 4 years, which is, again, this karma that's coming back is setting everybody up for what the next 4 years looks like. And you'll know what we'll talk about specifically the next 4 years in the next episode. So join us for that, folks. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon, and stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.